Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another crowdfunding preview, and today we're talking about Wondrous Creatures from Bad Comet Games. And before I get started, please make sure you turn your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that's where you'll find the corrections. Additionally, please do note that everything you see here is still in the prototype phase, and though this is a pretty darn finished product, there is some of the art still being changed, and the components may change as well as perhaps some of the rules as they continue development of the game. Next thing you notice is the game is sideways. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn all the cards so you can read them a little bit easier, but I could not, as you can see, fit it on the board if I tried to put it vertically like this. So let's just turn the cards in a weird way, and there we have it. Now what this game is this is a tableau building resource management style game with, it looks like area control, but it's not really area control. This is actually a worker placement board, and then the final thing that you're doing in this game is you're doing contract fulfillment over there. And in this game, you are explorers that have showed up on this magical island that have all kinds of crazy new creatures, and you're kind of collecting them and putting them into a reserve, which I believe is to kind of protect them and let them be happy and all. So if you are not interested in how this game is played and just want to jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game is going to work. The first thing that you need to know is what you see here is more or less the end state of the last game that I played, which was a two-player game. So it doesn't look like this at the start of the game, but I can explain it from here. And the game's going to be played until one of two things happen. Either all of these trophies are collected by people accomplishing these objectives here, or one player's time marker gets all the way to the end, and part of what happens when the time marker gets all the way to the end is all of the trophies get wiped from the board, thus triggering the end game. And so on your turn, what you are going to do is one of four different things. You are either going to, and I'm going to pull one of these guys back, you're either going to place a member of your crew out onto the board. And you have two types of crew. You have your regular crew, which are just the meeples here, and you have your crew that has a captain. And as you can see, there's a little cutout there, and your captain can literally hop right on, and he clicks on, or she clicks on with a little magnet like so. And I will point out that in the game there are a bunch of different captains that you can get, and all of them have different powers that you are able to unlock. And when you are placing your captain piece, then you're able to activate those particular powers sometimes, or it'll be a power that upgrades your others. Now, when you are placing, you place them down and you cover two spaces. And then you're going to look around and you're going to be able to collect things from the areas around it that have resources. So in this case here, if I were to place there, I would have a choice of what it is that I want to collect. We'll look here, we see there's coral, and we will see that there's fruit, coral, and mushroom in the spaces around my crew member. And these other spaces here have nothing on them, so I don't actually get to do something. Though I will point out that sometimes there may be an egg next to you, and you can also collect those. So in this case, I could take one mushroom, one fruit, and one coral, like so. Or if I wanted, I could go to the wilderness. And the wilderness are all of these cards over here. And if we look closer at some of these cards, you will see that they have a habitat up there. And that is where you're able to find these creatures. So instead of taking a coral, what I could do is take from the wilderness, I could discover one of these creatures that lives in that habitat, and then I could take this card into my hand. You'll also notice that some of the spaces have these little white circles on them, and that means you're able to use one of your butterfly nets that you have to take whatever action is there. So in this case, I could spend a butterfly net and collect two more mushrooms. I could also spend a butterfly net to pick up this egg here, which would then go into this space that I have on my board, and I'll explain what the difference between flipped over eggs and non-flipped eggs in just a little bit. And that's the first thing that you're able to do. The second thing that you're able to do is you're able to play one or two cards. And when you play cards, you play them out of your hand. If you recall, I collected this guy from the board, into my hand just a little while ago. Well, these are just cards that are literally in my hand. To get their benefits, you need to play them into your reserve. And to do that, and let me just give myself some resources here. And to do that, you're going to look at each specific card. So if I want this stellar wing here, I could pay 2 fruit and 1 flower. So I can pay my 2 fruit and my 1 flower. And then, because there's a lightning bolt here, I could do this instant action, which is I can draw 4 cards, add 1 to my hand, and I'll get their point value immediately. And the difference is the brown seal points are immediate and the red at the end of the game. So I could draw 4 and decide which one I wanted to take into my hand. And so let's say I took this one here, I would immediately get 3 points and this card would go into my hand. And then let's say I also wanted to play this Draxid right here. And then let's say for my second one, I decided to play this Swamp Pixie, which would cost me 2 coral and 1 mushroom. And you'll notice that this one has a different symbol. It has this hourglass symbol, which means every time I do what's called a refresh action, which I'll tell you about in just a moment, I will get to do this ability that's right here. There's actually 2 other kinds of cards that you can get. One is something like this, which is just a permanent ability that you're able to use, which is denoted by the infinity symbol, and there are the ones with the bell symbol, which means that is an in-game scoring card. So at the end of the game, I'll get points based on what's there. And that is the second thing you're able to do. The third thing you're able to do is claim an achievement. And when you claim an achievement, that is what these tokens are for here. When you claim one, you're saying that you are able to fulfill one of these achievements that's on the board. So in this case, if I wanted and I had either 6 or 3 bird creatures in my reserve, such as these right here, they're both birds, then I could claim that achievement. So it says here I need 3. Well, let's pretend that I have 2. This is where the eggs come into play. Let's just pretend that I also had this 1 egg right there. So I could say, well, I have these 2, and I have 1 egg that I'm going to hatch, and now I have a third. Now, this egg has been used up, and I can't use it again, but I can take one of my tokens from here and place it on the board there, which will give me some kind of bonus from over here. Each one's different, and at the end of the game, I'll get 4 points. It's important to note that each player can only go onto an achievement card 1 time, so I can't come back later and also claim the 6th benefit. In addition to when I do that, I take one of these trophies. Each trophy is going to be worth points at the end of the game, and if you recall, is one of the ways that you trigger the end game. And the last thing you might do is refresh. When you refresh, you'll take all of your crew back, and they'll come back to your board so you can place them again later. You will also activate any of the cards in your reserve that have this hourglass on there, and you will take your hourglass and move it up 1 space on the board here. And what happens is, the first time you get there, you'll do 2 things. You will flip this over here, and what that's going to do, that's going to tell you where new eggs will populate the board. So anywhere there's a triangle, I would go to the bag, draw out another egg, and put it out on the board, like so. And then below that, there will be these habitat tiles. And the first player to get there will then take it, and they can choose which side, and they can replace an existing special tile of the same type. So I can place this right here, and now it's got a new ability I can activate with a butterfly net. And that's pretty much how this game works. There is one more type of card that I failed to mention, which is the energy ones right here, which when you get them, you put them into your reserve and put energy on each spot that they have. At any time on your turn, you can spend 1 energy off of as many of your creatures that have energy as you would like, but only 1 per creature per turn. And there's other cards and ways that you can refill the energy on those creatures. But that's pretty much it. You're going to continue to play like this, around and around, until all of these trophies have been claimed, like so, or somebody gets all the way to this last spot. And I also failed to mention that every time someone puts one of these out, they get to do a sweep, which is a clear away 3 cards, either these 3 here or these 3 here, and they will get replaced. But that's pretty much how this game works. So what do I like about this game? The first thing that is clearly the most obvious is the art. I love it. And it's crazy pants, the art. The fish horse, it just makes my wife and I laugh so much, right? It's this unicorn horse fish thing with like webbed paws, and it's so majestic. And all of the critters are so wonderful and weird, and yet after you look at them for a while, they kind of make sense. And they're just, the look of the game is amazing, and this is just the prototype. Also, I have to call out the magnetic meeples that ride the little critters. It's so unnecessary, but it's so great. And I also do appreciate the functionality. The one thing, you can change out your captains depending on what kind of critters you want. So I just, the production and the look of this game is just awesome. And again, I only have the prototype, so it's only going to get better. Now, let's talk about the gameplay itself. I really dig it, and my wife really, really dug it. And there is something very satisfying about trying to pick the exact perfect spot to put your crew out there to get the exact resources to get the exact resources that you need. And along with that, that choice of, do I take more cards now or do I take resources, is sometimes really, really hard, because that spot is gone for a while if once you go there. So you really have to kind of plan ahead a little bit to figure out what it is that you need to do. And then, speaking of the planning ahead, there is a really challenging decision to be made about the cards that you are taking and playing. I mean, yes, there is some, obviously I need to do this because you're chasing those contracts, those achievements, and you do have to kind of chase those down. But the instant effects are usually so good, it's really hard to make the decision to take a refresh effect that you know you're going to get multiple times, but that's down the road, or the end game scoring. Especially if you grab an end game scoring early, it means you're going to have to work towards that for the whole game, and it makes for really challenging decisions, and I think that is fantastic. I also really like the wide variety of what these critters do. They do such disparate things that I was constantly surprised as new things came out, trying to figure out, oh, what's this one do? What's this one do? What's this one? Oh, this one does this. Oh, I could combo that with this one over here. And it's very, very satisfying to try to figure out exactly what it is that you're trying to do. And then the next thing I'll say is, I really do like how mid-game to late game, it feels like you're doing something cool every single turn. You are constantly just putting out new creatures, doing this, getting achievements, and then you have this other kind of interesting late game decision space of, what do I do? Because I have all these choices. I want to get more critters out because it gets me stuff and gets me points and gets me close to achievements, but also there's this other achievement that I could claim right now. If I don't claim it now, someone else is going to get it, and it becomes very, very satisfying of this new decision space that gets added into the late game. Then the last two things that I will say I particularly enjoy are, I do like kind of the slow progression of the game. I like the, every time someone refreshes, that timer moves up and you are inexorably moving closer towards a hard stop end game, which is a very interesting thing to me because it gives you that power, like, ooh, I peaked early, so I'm going to start pushing this end game, which then kind of shifts what everyone else is doing. But at the same time, you can also really slow play it. There was times in the time that I played with my wife where I was 2 whole spots behind her on the track as it moved towards the end game. And so I like that as well. And then the last thing I'm going to single out is, I like the different captains. I like that they're all very simple with what they do. All of them let you put all of your crew on a space that you couldn't put your crew on before, and all of them have some kind of power that your captain will get when you place your captain. Very, very satisfying to be able to just kind of change it out, and it really does change your strategy based on which captain you have, even though they're so simple to understand, and I think that's really, really done well. And also, they look great. So what are my quibbles with the game? And I actually feel the same way about their previous game, and I talked about this in the podcast, Life of the Amazonia. It's a slow starting game. And that is not necessarily good or bad, but the first couple turns that you're playing, and maybe even through the first refresh, it feels like you're not doing a lot. And it's a slow build as you get going. And that's just, and again, like I said, I don't know that that's bad, but it's just something to be aware of. The next thing I'll say is, and this is the biggest quibble that I have with the game, and this is really going to come down to who you're playing with, this is a game that is exceedingly AP prone. If you are prone to AP, you have so many choices that you can make constantly throughout the game. Because like I said, every single creature does something different. And because they all do something different, you're going to stop. You got to read every single one every time new ones come out. Every time you do a sweep, 3 more come out. You're going to have to stop. You have to read those. You have to go back and pay attention to what all the creatures you have in your hand do to see how you're going to combo. And there is real potential for long stretches of downtime in this game. And as I said, that's not necessarily bad, but who are you playing with? How much are you affected by downtime, and so on and so on. Then the next thing that I'll say is, I do wish that there was more options with the captains. And not even necessarily more captains. Like, I wish they were double-sided. Because, like I said, the differences in the captains are so slight. I mean, as I said, I like them, but they're so slight. I wish there was just some more options that just did something slightly different. And maybe that's something that could be a stretch goal down the road. I don't know, but I wish there was maybe a few more options there. That's a niggling quibble there, but just something that I have thought about. And then the only other thing that I'll say is, it's a really big board, and it takes up a lot. As you saw in the first part of this video, I had to actually turn it sideways to get it onto the camera. It's a really big board, and it's a really big board for what amounts to just a little worker placement spot. Like, it's not area control like it looks like. It's not that. And it is a very clever worker placement because depending on how you place it, you're going to get all kinds of different things. But it is a very big board, and perhaps it's not going to feel like you think it's going to feel with the size of the board and the big map and all of those things. And along with that, it also, your creatures really start to sprawl out, because I think in the first game I played, I finished with 18 creatures. So I had 18 cards out there on the side. Sure, I could have stacked them up, but then it's very hard to see what's going on. But there you have it, folks. That is Wondrous Creatures. I was a big fan of Life of the Amazonia, which I just backed, and I'm very happy that I did. And I might like this one better. And I hesitate to say I like it better because it's such a very different style of game where you have a bag management versus tableau builder. But it's just all of the different options and all of the different things that you're doing and you can find in these creatures. And maybe, it's a really hard choice for me if I had to pick which one of these I like better. And this is only a prototype. I think this is a game that if you like the art, you should just be in, just to like, it's worth the price of admission just for all these crazy creatures. But if you like a tableau builder, if you like all these different options that I'm talking about, and if you like this idea of this very clever, and I'm going to say unique, I'm sure another game has done something like this, but pretty unique way of collecting the resources with the way this worker placement goes, then I think this is a game that you really need to check out. I know that I am beyond thrilled I got to play it. This is one of the top prototypes that I've played this calendar year, for sure. And I play a lot of prototypes, so that says a lot. So there you have it, folks. That is Wondrous Creatures. As always, if I've made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with a timestamp so I can get that in the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.